Talk Show. Recorded live.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Freedom Fighters for America, and now the national anthem. Experiencing some technical difficulties here. Give me 1 second, please. Oh, okay. Well, in any event, the Star-Spangled Banner is working just like our country is. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Freedom Fighters for America Radio. We have with us tonight a federal whistleblower, a very good friend of ours. He's been on a few of our shows now, Mr. Stu Webb. And he's brought along a guest with him also. So I'm sure tonight's going to be a very action-packed night. Welcome back to the show, Stu. And I don't know your friend's name. Can you?
Brett Landry. He's a former attorney. Hope to get his license back soon, and we're going to be talking about that tonight.
Terrific. Okay. Well, since you're doing the speaking, let me ask you, what's the first topic you'd like to discuss for tonight?
Well, I think we ought to bring up maybe on this Israeli spy ring real quick, because I don't want to focus all night, Chris, on my story, because so many people have heard it, and I've been on your show before, but I would like to bring up the fact that this big bust of all these public officials over in New Jersey is tied to the 911 Israeli spy ring that were a lot of what was known as the dancing Israelis, many of them that were all involved in the ring. The dancing Israelis who were celebrating the urban moving systems was all tied up in it. And this involved, of course, the attack on America by George W. Bush and Dick Cheney and George Herbert Walker Bush. But the Israelis were involved, and they had terrorists involved, al-Qaeda terrorists, John Doe, number 2 of Oklahoma City, Jose Padilla, who was Terry Lynn Nichols, the Oklahoma City bomber's brother-in-law that was arrested again, of course, over 911 that they have in federal custody. But this all ties to Jack Abramoff. I'm telling you things that aren't in the posting. There will be a posting up on my website here shortly. It will be titled 911 Israeli Spy Ring Arrested in Masse. And we get into pretty good detail.
Can you please guess the website?
StuWebb.com, www.StewWebb.com. Sometime within an hour after show, I'll have it up there. We have it on the other site, the backup site as well. But that's the site you want to come to take a look at it. And it gets into a little more detail, and we'll be releasing more. But, if you can't get them one way, you get them another way, Chris, is the old saying. So,
in this case, I'm hoping that they're doing themselves in. It's not...
It's good guys in the government are the ones that took them down, and it took U.S. Marshals and a portion, certain FBI agents, should we say, were all involved because Homeland Security is not doing their job. There's still a lot of holdovers from the Bush administration and this Clinton administration, the Bush-Clinton crime syndicate. They're still infiltrated within this government. But we'll put it this way. It was good guys that took them down, okay?
Well, thank God for the good guys.
Yep. Thank God for them. So there's a lot of public heads going over there and a lot of people resigning. It ties into Jack Abramoff and money laundering. the theft from Israelis and the theft, from Americans both, and the laundering of money, and it ties into a lot of different things. There's been some stuff on the press about it, but you're going to have the ties here shortly. And this espionage ring that was involved in 9/11 helped bring down the towers and helped wire the towers. The State Patrol stopped and caught these Israelis, detained them along with others in New Jersey, that George W. Bush had released from prison 3 to 4 weeks after 9/11, intentionally to get rid of his partners who were in crime. These are a lot of people that were in the network that weren't inside the towers wiring the bombs in the towers, along with Gary Best, Defense Intelligence, which is, these should we say, assassination teams out of Defense Intelligence and out of the CIA that Cheney was running. What we refer to on my site many times as the true color people. But there will be an extensive posting up on the site here shortly after the radio show if anybody wants to get in and look at it.
Okay, very good.
But what I really want to talk about tonight, if we can, is Brett's story. And I want Brett to go into detail shortly, but it involves a lot of stuff, and basically the scenario is it involves Medicare and Medicaid fraud by the Bush crime syndicate involving Jeb Bush, stealing of them, who knows the exact numbers, but it could be as high as $1 trillion+ since 2001 when his brother George W. Bush took office, and Jeb was the governor of Florida. He's all involved in it. It's got judges out of Kansas City. It's got judges in Kansas City, Kansas, all involved in it. And, Brett, there's 2 dead U.S. attorneys involved out of Dallas, Texas, that were going after him over it. Brett was the attorney for Sam LaPerry, Brett had filed the case for him initially, medical supply chain because of competition. And it's a lengthy story, but the Bushes were involved in it, killing 2 U.S. attorneys, stealing $1 trillion+. I think I'm going to let Brett from there. Brett, you're on with me, aren't you?
Yeah, you got a pretty good summary of it. It seems like a complicated story, but it wasn't to me at the time. I'd been a factory worker, went back to law school after working for Boeing and Cessna, and I knew that the thing that was holding America back was this input. Every factory worker, everybody needs health care, and it was unaffordable in the United States. I know in southeast Kansas and southwest Missouri, we were competing globally. We had our labor costs down, and we were so much more efficient and effective, and our quality was higher, but it was health care that was killing us. So when Sam LaPerry came to me, he had a system to radically reduce healthcare costs. It's like when Cessna built a jet airplane. The cost of the things that you put in the plane costs more than the workers on the factory floor or your engineers or any other input into that plane. Not even the aluminum comes up to that. Well, if you take a trip to a hospital, it's the medical supply cost that drives this double-digit increase in costs that we've been seeing throughout the decade, and it's killed all our automobile plants. Ford is staying alive because it relocated much of its manufacturing to Brazil and other countries that have health care, like in Europe. So that's what got me to work so hard to help Mr. LaPerry. And I was just out of law school. I wasn't aware of how sometimes the law doesn't really matter. The facts and the evidence doesn't matter. It's how you're able to control outcomes. And I started paying pretty close attention to that. I think as we got more effective, I became a target. We also saw, I remember Sam calling that day, assistant U.S. attorney in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas office that was doing the government version of our case. We were both going after Novation. They have about $40 billion a year that they clear in our nation's hospitals. You never heard of them because they never had to sell stock. They skim so much money out of the system that they never had to sell any shares or probably even borrow any money. But when he called, the lady that was the head of, criminal prosecutor for the Fort Worth office, supervised, they said she was dead. They were surprises as heck, that she wasn't in the office that day, and he turned ashen when he heard that on the phone. Then we found out that the person that was in charge of the False Claims Act, when people like a healthcare provider steal money from the government through Medicare fraud, that lady, Thelma Louise, she had died just less than 40 days earlier. And they were both in their 40s, our age, and it really hit home. And it seemed strange that there was no, under the Gonzales Justice Department and his newly installed Northern District of Texas U.S. Attorney, no press releases, no coverage whatsoever. We were shocked. We eventually traced down the story in the Dallas Morning News, an obituary. Later, they fired the top 3 white-collar crime experienced attorneys in that same office. So well, as a nation, we ended up living it a couple years later when you saw there was no enforcement in the securities, banking, in the industry.
Yes, why did they fire the attorneys?
What'd you say?
Why did they fire the attorneys? What was that?
Well, after the 2 women died under real questionable circumstances, there's some controversy about the means and method of their death. There were 2 of the 4 assistant U.S. attorneys nationwide killed during the Bush years, and I think they were all related to RICO criminal syndicate activity. But of these 2, the 2 women in that office are dead, and you can see you got a new U.S. attorney that you've got some doubt about, in charge of the whole office, another Gonzales Bush appointee, and if you had any kind of chest paw at all, you'd be working in that office, and you'd be ready to go after the people that did it. One of the experienced white-collar professionals that they, made his living just tearing down white-collar business criminal enterprises was a former Green Beret. I mean, these guys couldn't be stopped, so they made one a judge and fired the other 2. So later, we started learning the Abramoff scandal as it broke, and we started seeing the effects of how you were able to buy influence in the Bush administration and get that U.S. attorney in your state removed or fired. We were in Missouri. Mr. LaPerry's company is a Missouri company. That was the epicenter of the wrongful U.S. attorney's firing. So you didn't have to have them all whacked. You could just contact Mr. Rove, Karl Rove, and have them removed. They're just now getting to the bottom of that.
Right. So they were neutralizing them in murder, and they were neutralizing them in firing, and just so that they can organize a scheme.
Yeah, it's when you look at our big industries nationally, you can see that as we merge into the New World Order plan, the North American Union, those are all pretty much it's fascism, but it's really, you want to assign market share to the big corporate partners. I mean, if GE helped George W. Bush get elected, you're going to promise, as they did, Mr. Welch, Jack Welch, the CEO of GE, no problems as he merges media outlets and no more antitrust enforcement. And Karl Rove was able to deliver. So they made partners that lasted a long time. Now you can see Jeffrey Immelt, GE's successor chairman, that he's trying to ingratiate himself with the Obama administration, and you can see who's the most radically pro-Obama or a left liberal Democrat supporting in their news media, and you'd have to say MSNBC or one of the IMELT controlled stations.
Mm-hmm. So you had a lot of difficulty from the start with this, and this started working into other things. Can you describe what was going on? I know you're involved with Stu, or you have been as far as a legal case was concerned, and I think Dave Price had something going on in Kansas as well. Can you get into that for us a little bit?
Yeah, I was working on the medical supply chain case, and I, following the rules of my state, I had to do some pro bono work, and
that was in Missouri. You filed that?
No, in Kansas, but they were David's at, and I was a Kansas licensed attorney, and I kept hearing David's story. He's telling me stuff that couldn't have happened in this adoption case that he was in, and later, his attorney abandons him, and his court-appointed attorney, and he's got to take it to appeal. And I remember my continuing education credits in the appellate work, and I thought, well, that wouldn't be too hard to research the law. Well, that's something that's not supposed to happen. Somebody from the wrong side of tracks isn't supposed to have competent legal representation, and it's if you got a relationship-based legal system, like some people would like Kansas to be, I think they're in error. But you do business more efficiently. It's the phone call, the ex parte or out-of-court communication that drives things. So if you're there following the rules and you're researching the law, you're the last to know what's really happening. And I probably could have looked at some Wichita TV stations were covering some similar theft of infants. There was a lady, a pharmacist, who had her child stolen and sold, and she was fighting in the system. But I was a new attorney, and I was just reading the case law, and I wasn't researching, say, on Google or looking at what different media outlets were covering at the time. So I was a victim of that kind of compartmentalization, yet I was still able to look at the facts and argue effectively from the Kansas Supreme Court's own prior decisions. But that just made me a bigger enemy of people with some power, and the people that needed to have Mr. LaPerry's case tanked. Thank God we're able to connect to those people. They didn't have to whack me. I'm sure it just took a phone call. And it didn't matter what the evidence was, didn't matter what the testimony. You can read the transcripts online. They wouldn't even let us present the evidence that they later disbar me over. So, I've been able to enjoy the consequences of that. It continues. They tend to make sure that I don't get any employment or have any property.
Let's talk about the ways they've targeted you with all of this. They took away your law license because they didn't want to practice. They didn't want you to practice. They had to neutralize you that way. You say that they're now making it impossible for you to work. So they're trying to break you financially?
If you whack a kid just out of law school, I went to Midwest Law School, so Kansas, Washburn, a good school. So I only had $140,000 worth of school loan debt. So you're going to knock me out of the saddle. I'm not going to repay any of that. I'm not able to. But that's not enough in the Kansas game. I knew how bad it was because a lot of the witnesses and people that testimony in different federal cases, I knew what they were doing. They tend to contact your employers. If you apply for a job now, your Social Security number puts you on a database. If you're a friend of Dick Cheney or Citibank or one of its the people at the top of the food chain, Goldman Sachs, all these industries that are monopolizing toward the big North American Union idea, you're easily put on a list, and then you don't work. Trust me, you don't work, and you keep applying for jobs that now I don't have much of an excuse because they've trashed the economy so bad. They're like 1 in 5 is unemployed now. But so you don't support your family, so you lose your house, you lose your car, you lose your family. There's a Texas political science professor that said that whistleblowers, you lose all your friends, you can't get a job, you spend a fortune in legal bills. That's free to me. I can always argue in court at no cost. I take an interest in it. It's a good hobby, but everybody else would have to pay through the nose in legal bills, and then at the end, just like the Valerie Plame case, it gets thrown out, and you can't really explain the reasons why it got, because it's not really based on law, and then you're lucky to have a job. And those are the.
Well, let me ask you something. You've been disbarred. Can you work as a pro se? Are you allowed to?
Pro se people don't work. You're doing it for yourself, if that's the Latin term. You would think that I have a wonderful set of skills that make me an excellent paralegal, but I could probably only be a paralegal in 2 states. One's Florida and maybe Illinois. And then there'd be some doubts about whether I could even have any contact with the client. So I explored that. I thought, well, I could translate my education and my experience pretty effectively to be employable, but that's where
Are you attempting to get your law license back?
No one has ever gotten it back in Kansas. And you can't get it in another state because usually another state knows the real reason why you're disbarred. So, in other words, they have some corruption that they're pretty uncomfortable with in their state, so they really don't want an honest attorney in their state practicing law, somebody that can be controlled. So that seems to be the problem. And as I check with other people going down this route, that tends to be what happens. Most states have some kind of a formal statement, so you could check your own state to see if your state's participating in this. California, I think, actually has a statute that says if you've been disbarred in another state, you can't practice law in California. So,
so right now it's an uphill battle.
I see what David Price is doing in Kansas right now, and it dominates the media. But I really don't. I don't think the solution's in courts. We were at the best in our industry, Cessna and Boeing, and I could look around and see what was holding us back. And I thought, well, these are all laws being broken. Certainly, you could solve that in court. I don't think that you can win in court unless you can win outside of court. And you gotta respect judges and courts. They don't have a police force. They don't have an army. They only get to put stuff in writing themselves. So if you really haven't brought society to that point, like the civil rights struggle, it took generations, and to get America itself ready to accept, desegregation. That you couldn't have won, and that was the Kansas court and the Missouri court, both that were the original trial courts and what became that set of civil rights cases that became Brown versus Board of Education, but that changed pretty much America as we know it. But you can't get there unless you can win outside of court. So you have to concentrate, like this radio show, your media and people that be active politically. My party, the Republican Party, is concentrating a lot on emphasizing who gets selected for office based on the kind of judges that they would help to nominate. I think I can see the Democrat Party now suddenly having the reins and not really sure what their plan is. So basically, do you think that
public awareness and public pressure on these entities and agencies is going to be one of the keys in the possible turnaround.
Yeah, I think it even has to come first. I think courts are there's lots of conspiracy theories or ways of explaining how outcomes are obtained in courts, but I think that they pretty accurately reflect where the power is in the country and what the power is organized behind. So, you know, I'm sitting here in the middle of a very sparsely populated state, Kansas, and I got 6-lane highways going to nowhere that don't make any sense unless you're looking at the 35 corridor and this North American Union and all the infrastructure that, you know, the people running for Congress deny is happening. So it's when you look at where the power is and what they're trying to accomplish, you can see that's pretty much what gets reflected in courts and certainly in our universities and pretty much when you look at our monopoly media, newspapers tend to be one publishing company that owns like a radio station or TV and a newspaper in one major city. And you tend to look at that and what they tend to be biased toward, and you can see it's something other than what we were taught government is or public policy was in school, and it's something else.
Okay. Well, I don't mean to cut you short. We're going to go on a short break. This is Freedom Fighters for America Radio, and we'll be right back. Freedom Fighters Radio is on www.freedomfightersforamerica.com. We expose crime and corruption. Welcome back, ladies. This is Freedom Fighters for America Radio. We have with us tonight Mr. Stu Webb, and we have on there. I apologize. I really didn't understand you.
And they're really cutting us in and out here, Chris.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sort of getting at myself. Hello?
A little bit of an issue. Yeah. So anyway, Brett, as you were saying, so infrastructure that is slowly turning into this one world global government, and the court system also seems to be geared towards that now, where there's more of a monopoly and manipulation.
Yeah, I pretty much think it's a standard rule of thumb that government and large corporations can do no wrong. You know, we tend to glorify, you know, the David versus Goliath battle, but in reality, even the smallest governmental unit is almost always right, no matter how terrible a violation of the Constitution that they did to somebody or how they injured them. It's pretty much an extremely rare exception that courts actually side with the victim, and it doesn't seem to track when you compare the case law as it would normally be applied to the facts. It doesn't. It's something new. There's a lot with the new Supreme Court justice hearings about following precedent and stuff, but in trial courts, it was surprising ever to see a decision, and this is here in the heartland, that actually followed the controlling case law even for that circuit court. So I think that you have to look beyond courts. And there was a time early in this republic where courts really weren't that important, and they're getting their funds cut quite a bit as state legislatures have to scale back, and it may quickly return to this idea that you're going to fix it with that agency, with that city, that the people trying to take your house and give it to a developer. Using the internet, you can find where that developer is getting their money, who's guaranteeing those bonds, and show up at that city council meeting raising some questions that they didn't want to have raised, and pretty much the financing dries up. So you can be much more effective outside of court than you can waiting 2, 3, 4, 10 years for a case to proceed through it. And before, Marbury versus Madison, or the first years of our new constitutional government, we had something we call now in political science popular sovereignty. So it's really people getting so mad and showing up out in the town square that produce the change. And if you think your court is too responsive to interests that in your eyes aren't even legitimate, you might be better served standing out with your neighbors and friends and in your town hall than you would in a courtroom.
Right. So basically, if we want a constitution, the people in this country better stand up to keep this constitution, or we will not very shortly have one at all. And it seems like, in a lot of instances today, this is what we're looking at. Lack of interest in our government, lack of interest in our society is causing our infrastructure to rot away to total corruption, where the good people become the victims of these criminals.
And they have to be singled out, like the honest policeman. You got to kill them first. It's just that's unfortunate, but that's what's happening.
And I'll tell you, Chris, there's something going to happen. If people haven't figured it out, I mean, we've been robbed for 30 some odd years from these same criminals, the Bushes and the Clintons. I call it the Bush-Clinton crime syndicate. But, they're cornered now with the stooge Obama in the White House. And they're cornered really bad. And they're financially upside down. And, I won't get into all the details. They're aware of me. I've done some damage. Other people have done some damage. But the thing is, there's a corner. And we've got up on my website, they're plotting and planning to do a massive biochemical attack with what we call the flying pigs. It's NSA code word, flying pigs. Bird flu, swine flu combined, that they won't have a vaccination on it until October. It's going to break out. It's already beginning to break out. They're going to activate it real hard around September the 1st, and they plan on killing 10 to 100 million people if necessary.
Wow.
Huge epidemic. Close down the borders of the United States to cut people like you and me and Brett off, round us up, blame it on swine flu. Oh, they've got swine flu. We had to, they've got the flying bird flu. We got to get rid of them.
Right.
And if you notice, we've already posted on my website about this last week. There's going to be a massive article that we'll be doing probably this week on it. I was kind of hoping we'd have everything done by this weekend, but I would say next week. You're going to have to come and read the report. This is all orchestrated by the Knights Templar Illuminati bankers. They're cornered in the United States. They know it. They want total control, and they want to get rid of a whole bunch of people. It's a good reason to open up all the concentration camps and march all the patriots off. Right. If you notice the fluctuation in the weather, it's being manipulated with HAARP. We're having 60-degree nights in the Midwest, upper Midwest, days of upper 80s and into the 90s. It's just the variation's almost 25 to 30 degrees. It's to get people sick before their immune system's weakened, should I say, from the fluctuation between the cold and the hot, day-night temperatures. So when they do this massive outbreak with nanotechnology, which is done with radio frequencies in a frigged computer, they've already dumped the viruses on us with the chemtrails. All they have to do is pinpoint a certain geographic area, and they can light it up with a computer and activate these viruses. And they're plotting and planning. It was a secret plan of the George Bush, Knights Templar, George Herbert Walker Bush, Henry Kissinger, the Millman, Leonard Millman, who's alive, my ex-in-law, who I thought had been dead, yes, very much alive. He faked his death because of the pressure that I've put on him and Tom Hennigan has put on him repeatedly since prior to 2004. I've been after him for 27 years now, but he faked his death.
When did you discover that?
This past 2 weeks, we found out that he's alive. He's been seen. He's been identified. He faked his death. He did it with newspaper articles claiming he was dead, and he's not. And you remember, he's the bank bailout crowd. They're the ones that wrote these mortgages without any houses. 30% of all the mortgages that were originated from 2001 after Bush Jr. gets in office, Millman's partner, they were originated out of MDC Asset Investors in Denver, Colorado by Leonard Millman and Larry Mizell. 30% of those mortgages all across the country had 9 fake mortgages in behind them. They've already grabbed the $23.5 trillion of the bank bailout recently. And they've got another roughly $100 trillion they're estimating that could be in these. They're for sure over $25 trillion in just artificial mortgages. So they call it subprime and the whole bit, trying to blame it on the people for walking away. The people are walking away because they can't afford it. There's no employment. And they've cratered the economy.
How did they discover the trillions missing? Do they know where it went?
I can't get into all the details because of certain reasons, but the subprime scandal, this bank bailout scandal, one day I think that you're going to find out that Tom Hennigan and I were the credited whistleblowers on it. I'll leave it that way. Remember, the savings and loan scandal I'm written about in mainstream press is the guy who was one of the main people that helped expose that, and the HUD scandal in Denver Airport and Keating 5. I think you're going to find this out. We've had friendly feds, should we say. We've had friends in our corner, good guys, trying to bust them at every turn, just like this 911 Israeli New Jersey espionage nest. In the past 3 days, you've seen it light up about all these arrests. These are the guys all tied to Abramoff. They're tied to the Israeli. It all goes back to the Jonathan Pollard case, the Israeli network in the United States. It's been established. It's here. Rahm Emanuel, White House Chief of Staff, underneath Obama's part of it. Senator Arlen Specter of Pennsylvania's part of it. Lieberman, Joe Lieberman, Senator Lieberman, he's part of it.
What's the link between Lieberman? What's the link on Lieberman? Where does he?
They're all tied up with this Israeli espionage operation against the American people, and it goes all back to what they call the Jonathan Pollard case. And I'm going to leave it as that with that.
Okay,
and let things shake on out.
Let me push further because I have a little interest in Lieberman. He's a senator in Connecticut.
I understand. I think you're going to see his name being brought up shortly. I think you're going to see things happen.
I see. So in other words, there's some action going on here in Connecticut because obviously he's affiliated. That's exactly
what we have. What we have, Chris, is we have a force of good guys within the government that are trying to do something outside of the control box of the Justice Department because there's no Justice Department. We have Eric Holder, who was involved in the, should we say, Bill Clinton's presidential pardon of Mark Rich, who was part of this espionage, Israeli espionage ring. They're the ones that brought down the towers on the day of 9/11 for George W. Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush, and these Templar Illuminati bankers that
now
Bush Sr. is.
We're talking about Mossad relations here, right? I mean, these are some of the people that are involved here.
Yes, yes.
I want to say that, it's the Mossad. It's a small faction. Even the American Jewish advocates supporting our neoconservative movement and the power they had with Bush tended to only reflect a narrow part of Israel's population that thought that somehow greater war was going to make Israel safe. They have the same problem we do. A very small elite tend to control everything. So
it's Anwar ben Shari, if I may. It's Anwar ben Shari of Israel, who's the head rabbi of the synagogues worldwide, is a Satanist like George W. Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush, Leonard Millman, and others, who are the 100 Templar bankers worldwide, what they refer to as the Council of 13, the Illuminati that controls 90% of the wealth of the world. Go ahead, Brett.
Well, one question is this rabbi supposedly the 13th Templar?
He's one of the 13th. Yeah, he's one of the 100 Templar bankers, they call it, who are ripping us off on all these bank deals right now, but he's one of them. He's the one that controls Israel, and he's the head rabbi, just like this current Pope, Benedict. He's a Knights Templar banker. If they can control the churches in the world, they can control masses of people. This Templar banker, Anwar ben Shari, is a Satanist, does human sacrifices, is going around molesting children, running rampant with all of his stuff, and he claims to be the head rabbi for the synagogues worldwide of the Jewish religion.
Well,
the same way with Pope. This Pope is the same way.
Has he ever been charged? Has he ever been charged with any of these crimes?
He has been, just like George Herbert Walker Bush. I mean, there's been person after person, victims of sexual pedophilia against children, et cetera. Kathy O'Brien, you can look her up on the Internet. You might look her up. She's got a book. I mean, I've met Kathy. I've talked with her and Mark Phillips. I know a whole bunch of these. Barbara Hartwell's sister was a victim. Many people, former CIA Barbara Hartwell, you look her up on the Internet. I mean, it's just one person after another this has gone on. My ex-wife was a victim because they take their own children to these parties and pass their own little girls and little boys around at the pre-ritual parties. Because Leonard Millman was holding them at number 1 Eudora Street in Denver. I found out 10 years after I divorced this woman. But this is the way they are. They practice their religion of Satanism. They sell their souls, and they practice because they're working on their New World Order, total control.
I could never have believed any of this 10 years ago, but, looking in the court system and trying to figure out what's the motivation for what's happening. For instance, we can pretty clearly see our Treasury Department being totally ripped off. But how do you steal so much money? You can't. They're stealing so much money that the U.S. dollar is worth so much less that you couldn't possibly even be profiting from your crime after a certain point. So why are they doing it? And then you tend to have to look for what's the motive behind it. Why would you not enforce any of the laws in healthcare and watch, Al-Qaeda didn't have an air force. We lost 37 auto plants. Did anybody see any bombers going overhead? No. Not a was enforced against it.
Doesn't it seem like the so-called quota?
Does it seem like the so-called what?
You were cutting out, Chris.
I'm sorry.
Chris?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, all right, they're cutting on my phone here. it just seems to me, like you said, isn't it odd that, our dollar value is going down and down and down, so it's really not worth anything. Why would they collapse our economy? There has to be a motive, as you said.
Yeah.
There has to be a motive. So a lot of these quote-unquote conspiracies now start to untangle themselves and may even make sense, even to the non-believers. And the motivation to hand out billions of dollars in stimulus to companies, that put themselves out of business, and we're supporting them so that, the big CEOs can take bailouts and parachutes, is absurd. And why would that take place if it wasn't their intention on collapsing our economy? And I remember, reading on your site, Stu, and listening to a couple of our other interviews where literally trillions of dollars have been stolen and put in offshore accounts. And, why is this all taking place? Yeah, it's greed, but there's a motive. That Illuminati, one world, global government, whatever you want to call it, motive seems to add up at every turn. That's just my opinion here, but this is what I see. What do you think about that?
Well, you could go ahead, Fred. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, you can read their own documents, Club of Rome, the CFR or its English version. I mean, it tends to be what they've planned out over 20 or 30 years.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, what are you doing now, Brett? You've been disbarred. Are you still working with David Price?
No, I do talk to him about every other day. He's such a local celebrity now. His time's getting pretty scarce, but no, I have no income. I'm the future. If you speak up in America, well, like you two gentlemen were committing some UN crimes here. You're talking about whether the leadership of some churches would be have governments enforce criminal laws against them. I guarantee you, 2 years from now, you'll be seeing governments enforce UN-inspired laws against hate speech that will make you all the criminals for what you said.
Well, you know what? I got to tell you something right now. If I had to worry about trying to expose criminals that are destroying our country and that are risking our next generations to come, and also being a victim personally of these criminals in ways that I've discussed in on my website and in other interviews that I've done, my motivations are sincere in that respect. I don't like being attacked by these people with all kinds of high-powered technology to down our country. So I am an American, I am a patriot, and there's just no doubt that I don't just roll over to these people. You know what I'm saying? So if they're going to come after me and kill me, they're going to come after me. And, I'll put up the fight, and whatever happens, happens. That's how I look at it. I refuse to crawl under the rock, and I hope there's a lot of other citizens out there that feel that way. And maybe we can turn this around, because if we don't, we're a dead society here.
Chris, I've been a political prisoner myself for 10.5 months. That you're aware of, and they classify me as a test case, and they're trying to send me off to Springfield, where all the Iran-Contra players are, Siberia, USA. You can't get a phone call out of there and all that. And of course, I got out of there with an evaluation, psychological evaluation. They sent me there saying, that I was a nut, that I should be evaluated, et cetera, for supposedly making death threats to my former in-laws that never even happened. The tapes themselves are right up on my internet site. Anybody go in and look under my daughter, Amanda Millman, and listen to the tapes that got me arrested. There's no death threats in there, no terroristic threats that I was charged with. After 10.5 months, they didn't know what to do with me, so they finally dismissed the charges, kicked me out the door. I was credited for savings loan. They called me a test case. Why a test case? Because I was classified as a national security threat for exposing George Herbert Walker Bush and Leonard Millman, my ex-in-laws, that had Neil Bush working at Silverado as a director of Silverado, of which Millman owned, MDC Holdings, the same company that did all the savings and loan, junk bond daisy chain, HUD fraud, the same people over and over and over again. Millman was, are the same ones involved in the current bank bailout and the whole bit. I mean, I get things, exposed behind the scenes, get things rattled, and then they come in and they just bail them out, or they just let them off. And nobody goes to jail. The big ones never go. They call them buffers. They got the Bernie Madoffs as a front. They've got the other ones, you know, the Phil Wynn's, the Larry Mizell's, the different ones that are all involved in this current bank bailout as their buffer, so they don't get touched. So somebody else gets carted off jail in the event if everybody gets caught. But we've come to a point now, I'm in agreement with Brett, you can't get anything done in the courts. You can't get any prosecutors to do anything. We've had nothing but obstruction of justice on the part of the United States Attorney Generals since 1981. And there has been no way of they've had a control box there. They've eliminated the racketeering offices in 1988 intentionally, the federal RICO racketeering offices. They left the labor racketeering in Philadelphia. I actually got an assistant U.S. attorney over there to go against some of the old Iran-Contra boys and their security fraud tied to Millman. And what do? They go and kill their key witness right in the jail cell. That, you know, that's an example of what they do.
How many criminal have you seen sealed?
Killed. What?
How many criminal indictments have you personally seen sealed or know about being sealed? Where they've actually charged someone, where they've actually indicted this person, and they've actually sealed the case to keep it covered.
Yep. Patrick Fitzgerald, homosexual in the closet, Patrick Fitzgerald, special prosecutor on the Valerie Plame case. He had it all. And he passed it up initially to other U.S. attorneys because it was out of his scope of things that the Central Intelligence Agency, other agencies were feeding him at the time, and it was out of the scope of Bush himself, but it was interrelated, but it wasn't to deal with what he had only scope and authority to go after that Romey had given him under Ashcroft, which Romey's a good guy. But they appointed other U.S. attorneys, just like Carol Lamb of San Diego. She investigated the kidnapping of my daughter, Amanda Millman, they call her. Her real name's Amanda Webb, 27 years ago. And they investigated that, Carol Lamb did, and actually brought indictments of kidnapping against my ex-wife, my ex-father-in-law, and my ex-mother-in-law. And charged them with other things, forgery, perjury, frauds upon the court, and everything else. And she's the one that was bringing Jack Abramoff down, which he answered directly to Larry Mizell and Leonard Millman out of Denver. Well, Mizell was the one, the current bank bailout guy. I got him lit up all over the top side of my internet, StuWebb.com, gets into it and their background. But Carol Lamb gets fired over it. They find out about it. So the cases are sealed, and where do they send those indictments? They send them to the National Security Archives. They put them in archives at National Security. They claim it's a national security issue. It has nothing to do with national security.
Right. Is this why during
the
Clinton
administration, it's full of Israeli Mossad intelligence officers?
Is this why during the Clinton administration years there was that, I forgot the name of the individual, but he was caught stealing documents out of the archive, putting them in his socks?
Yeah, Berger.
Yeah.
That wasn't during that administration. It was during Bush administration. He was going back and stealing stuff that had been buried there.
Oh, I thought it was during
Andy Berger.
Some found in the White House in personal residence in Hillary Clinton's possession, but they never made a big deal about that.
That could have been another case that you're referring to, but I'm aware of Sandy Berger going in or stuffing his socks and down his pants with documents relating to 911 that they put under there to hide it. That's how they get rid of it, and then eventually someone goes in and takes it out of there and steals it, and the documents disappear. One of the reasons they blew up the Oklahoma City building was to stop the Third Independent Party movement, the Patriot community that was rising up for change in the mid-'90s. But you know what they did before they blew the building? They moved all the Iran-Contra, Ollie North, Mena, Arkansas, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton money laundering, drug importation, Millman documents, all that stuff that was all tied up with them, and Millman was laundering it through Silverado and M&L business machines in Denver. They moved all those documents from the U.S. Attorney's Office 2 weeks before the Oklahoma City bombing. They moved a whole bunch of HUD documents related to 500,000 apartment units they stole from HUD. They moved those documents there, and then they blew them all up in the building. And then when the building didn't collapse and all the bombs didn't go off on all the pillars, they surrounded the area. They had everybody leaving. They bring in 6 or 7 Ryder pickup trucks to get all those documents out of there so they could go bury them out in the local landfill.
Mm-hmm. And do they have witnesses to that?
Yes, they got witnesses. They even a TV station that I have a copy of the recording was sitting there shooting the videotape of the Ryder trucks. I kept saying, what are these trucks pulling up here for? How come nobody's allowed to go get the people out of the building? Look, we got bodies, people falling out of here, and they're still alive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But this is the way they do. This is the way these people operate. They have no respect for human life. They're Satanists. They're practicing Satanists.
Let's move on.
I've written reports about this and reports about it, and even Anton LaVey's son, Anthony LaVey, I have an interview of him up on my website. If you go to Table of Contents, StuWebb.com, scroll down to Breaking News, and right above it says Table of Contents. Go in the archives there and look for the interview and look at the Kimball Castle. He was castrated on the at the Kimball Castle on the altar of Satan. And he talked about being locked in Leonard Millman, my ex-father-in-law's tunnel underneath his house, at the pre-ritual parties for being a bad boy and not capitulating to the game of, excuse the expression, getting sodomized.
Mm-hmm. Let's go on to another conversation. We were going to bring up the assassination teams, NSAQ, Division 5. What's the gist on all this? I know you've had problems with them, and I've seen them around me quite a few times. What's the gist on what's going on here now?
We've had them for years. The assassination team's been around since the 1950s that I'm aware of, even before that. The CIA had them. I mean, the government's used them. They've assassinated a lot of foreign leaders. They've assassinated a lot of people worldwide. But it's been ever since they assassinated the President of the United States. That was a CIA team, hit team. I mean, if you go to the archives, you can see, or under Table of Contents where my archives are, you can see under other top stories, the stories with documents, including a picture of George Herbert Walker Bush standing in front of the book depository store 6 minutes after the shooting. He was involved. I talked to Frank Sturgis. Frank Sturgis was one of the spotters for the shooter. A month later, he was killed. Less than a month later, I ended up in a jail cell, because I had been hiding from the FBI. They wanted to arrest me and shut me up, and that was when I was a political prisoner for that 10.5 months. A month later, Frank Sturgis was killed. He was also named Frankel. That was just, but, I mean, he had been a hitter, too. I've run across a lot of people. Division 5 of FBI is running a lot of these hit teams right out of Denver, Colorado.
Mm-hmm. And
right out of Denver. Mark Hoslaw's in charge of them, an FBI agent. Special agent in charge, Mark Hoslaw. Denver's in charge of these hit teams, some of them, for the FBI. The CIA's got them. The FBI's got them. The FBI's intertwined with the Defense Intelligence, Gary Best, Iran-Contra Gary Best, Bosnia Gary Best tied to Timothy McVeigh and Terry Lynn Nichols. Timothy McVeigh wasn't CIA. Terry Lynn Nichols was. Roger Moore on the Oklahoma City bombing case, that was the gun shop owner, he was CIA. He parks his yacht down there at Pier 66 in Miami with Jeb Bush and Oliver North in a submarine and hauled drugs in.
Mm-hmm. Now,
they were all part of the network.
You've had a lot of COINTELPRO. You have a lot of counterintelligence people all over you. I know a lot of us do. What seems to be, do you have one in particular that has really been, a source of constant, threat to you throughout the years of any of these people?
Are you asking me one of the assassins? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah.
It's been a combination of several of them. I mean, I've spotted, and I don't want to mention names on the air because then they know that I know who they are. I'm not interested in doing that now, okay?
Right. Sure.
I mean, it's just like right now, I've heard that the Chinese intelligence are trying to get me. I'll leave that alone. George Herbert Walker Bush did and Barack Obama both were conspired to have them do it.
Mm-hmm.
Barack Obama, the President of the United States, trying to hit me and Tom Hennigan both. Okay?
Yep, and here's another interesting thing, that Barry Soetoro thing. I mean, you have that up on your site that's been floating around the internet?
He's foreign-born, very sartorial. Yes, you're very correct.
So here we go. A man born in Indonesia, president of the United States. Obviously, it's against the law. You can't be a foreign-born citizen to be the president. Manipulated into the office, and this can't be exposed to the American people.
It's just like, go ahead.
There you have an example. There's lots of ways that case or those allegations have been brought into courts in lots of different cases, and they all seem to stop. You don't get an outcome that's consistent with the rights of a member of the electorate to be able to see the public records on the candidate he's voting for. So there's an example of how courts tend to have to reflect where the current government is, the current people with power want it to be, rather than what we understood it from older documents that have less force or effect now.
Right.
And it's just like the voter fraud. Chris, the first time an election was true and honest was in the year 2006. And I got Tom Flacco to write a story about how it was going to be monitored by U.S. intelligence, and they did. And they were able to stop the voter fraud in 2006. That's the reason they got on the news the next day after all those Democrats got in, because people went out and voted the way their heart felt and what they wanted. They wanted change. And then in 2008, this last election, everybody thought they were going to be able to protect it again. Hell no. They went in there, the NSA, the Israeli Mossad that controls the National Security Agency, they went in there, they got so many stooges, they planted these chips inside of all the voting machines, electronic voting machines, for the outcome. It's just like Al Gore. He's a duly elected president from the year 2000. They stole his election in 5 states. His case was presented before a grand jury in Georgia. And Jimmy Carter's the one that got it done, a former constitutional officer like Al Gore's a former constitutional officer. And Al Gore tried to go against Clinton's. And they tried to set him up in the 1996 election with that little Buddhist temple crap, which was all just a big spin and the whole bit to try to throw him out the door. And then they did the same thing again in 2000 to him when Bush comes in and steals it. The Supreme Court of the United States can't make the decision on who the president's going to be. The outcome is only done, according to the Constitution, by the Congress and the Senate, not by the Supreme Court.
Well, we have some serious issues.
We've had a coup d'etat. We had a coup d'etat in the October surprise 1980 election involving Jimmy Carter, get him out. We had a coup d'etat prior to that in 1963 when they killed John F. Kennedy. We had a coup d'etat in the 2000 election involving Al Gore, and then I guess you could say the stooges have run rampant since, because everybody that ran this last election, Hillary Clinton, crime syndicate member, John McCain, Keating Five-Boy, crime syndicate member, Barack Obama, foreign-born, crime syndicate stooge. Our country is ready to go down the tubes, and the only thing that's going to save it is the American people themselves, some elements of the military, a big element of the intelligence community will be there, and the rest of the American people are going to have to be prepared on September the 1st to start shooting UN troops in the streets of America who will be brought in here. And we've already indicated this in a couple postings last week. It's going to happen. British troops, German troops are on American soil now to be unleashed around the cities and surround the cities. I've heard talks since the mid-'90s from militia people and the whole bit. It's not going to happen. When they put the troops on the streets, that's when it's time, if not before. And I tell you what, it will be time for the American people to round up their government officials and hold jury trials, citizen jury trials, and bring the law down on their head, period.
Well, we're going to go into a break. Hold on to that thought, and we'll be right back. This is Freedom Fighters for America Radio at www.freedomfightersforamerica.com. We'll be returning momentarily.
Mama told me when I was young, sit beside me, my only son. Listen.
Still there, Brett? Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, they're not liking our broadcast tonight, so welcome back to Freedom Fighters for America Radio. Sorry for the interruption there, Stu. Any solutions here? What, do you see anything aside from what this revolution is probably going to happen?
Go ahead. You want to answer that one, Brett? I think I've said my piece regarding it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this internet broadcast, it's amazing what open visibility does. People know things now so much quicker, and they know the story that was never printed in a local paper because of the internet. So this transparency, I think, is our salvation. It's a way to network with the people that can cause rapid change. And oftentimes I'm seeing those government agencies or those big corporate bureaucracies failing to even turn around quickly to take on a new threat. So, that's the only hope I see on the horizon.
Right. So in other words, we have to shine the light on these criminals. We have to attempt to wake up some of the patriots out there and some of the people who don't know what the heck's going on in this country, really. And with this point, there is plenty of evidence out there. I know there is. I mean, I speak to many people, including my own. There is evidence. I mean, we just don't have a place to introduce it. I mean, you can't walk into a courtroom today and say, well, I'm a victim, here's my evidence. They laugh in your face and dismiss your case anyway. Or they'll just say it's national security, you at the door like a moron, or call you ill because you're reporting corruption and you're a whistleblower. So they want to get rid of you. So until, we're out there, I know, I try to do my part running this podcast and radio shows. We blog these things globally. We have Freedom Fighters for America chapters in other countries as well. We're in Brazil. We have members in China. We have members in Africa, in the UK, and Canada. So, I mean, and they're all they do. I mean, some of them do work, but others are just targets, and they can't work. And what they do is get the word out there by blogging away these links and credible people's information. And I know that people out there have documented picture, audio information that will indict people, that will point to these criminals. But we need to get public pressure on it. And I agree with Stu 100%. There is no way we should stop now. There's no way. I mean, we need more people out there, just out there looking, identifying what's going on in their own communities. If we could take each person in their community, even if it was one person in the community that was sharp and had good, we could nail down a lot of the criminals that are committing these crimes within our communities. Whatever it is, because
Well, Chris, you're cutting out in and out really
okay,
bad
I'm
on
sorry.
our end.
Yeah, okay. I apologize. I'm sitting in the middle of a war zone here, okay?
Yeah, I understand. I understand.
So, I just think that everyone who can get involved should get involved. That's the bottom line. That's my little piece, I'm hoping that, we can proceed further. I'm looking forward to doing more radio shows. I hope there'll be an agreement made on that. And we'll have you on more often, that's for sure. Al Cuppa, too. Al's out there. He's trying to expose this stuff, former Joint Chiefs of Staff out of the Pentagon, action officer. So, here's a guy on the inside in the military that saw what the heck's going on. you know, and yourself.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who still want to step up to the plate. I mean, you know, we had Rodney Stitch on the other night, and, you know, he's a man 85 years old. He's written 19 books, and, you know, it's just absolutely incredible. Absolutely
I know.
incredible.
I've contributed a few of his books, but I'm written about Patrolling America. But, yeah, I've known Rodney. That was the second book, and hell, the same thing. He writes a book, leaves the FAA. Next thing you know, whammo, they're throwing him in jail. And that's how he came across Gunther Russbacher, you know?
And he did everything he could have done in the court. I mean, he was even a high-up FAA official, and his briefs were excellent. He stated claims in his complaint. He had evidence to prove every point, and the same result. It's just
they throw him in jail for filing claims. And they take Brett's license for representing fraud against the United States government, and they use another case, which was a case involving Kansas children. And, you know, another case, of course, David's case was another one, but they used one in particular to get his license illegally. In what was this, less than 10 days, they took your license from you, Brett?
They spent about 2.5 years just destroying everybody associated with me. It was a long, painful process. It was really just designed to destroy my life. So I get beyond it, but I'm telling you that, you know, having a license to practice law, you can see a lot of injustice there. Well, there's a lot of attorneys out there, and they're not free to go into a court and seek redress the way the Constitution and the laws of our nation say you can. So the problem, if you want to fix that problem, you got to do it with the other two branches, the administrative branch and what's been an executive branch criminal conspiracy for some time now, 2 decades at least. That's got to end. And if you can intimidate all of Congress or blackmail them, and then you give telecom immunity and more tools to blackmail them and concentrate yet more power in the hands of a criminal executive branch, there's no turning back.
Let me ask
and I might add to that, Chris, I'm aware of, because I have some evidence on this that I can't get into, but about half the United States Congress and Senate are chipped.
Uh-huh.
The other half are blackmailed and compromised and controlled. There's only about 6 or 7 congressmen and senators that aren't controlled, but the ones that aren't, they end up either killing them, they end up trying to blackmail them, they use different things, just like John Conyers. Recently, he tried to come against him. You know, they get his wife and bring her up on charges recently, is what I understood. You know, this sort of thing. By the way, I might add, the 911 Israeli spy ring arrested in Masse is now up on my internet site that I told you about.
Yeah.
And that's a New Jersey thing, but we just pointed the Israeli maps up there and the whole bit, so if anybody wants to see the story, not what mainstream media is reporting, because they don't understand what they're reporting about. Because I know people that were involved in this bust on their head.
I want to ask your opinion about something. What do you think about the Senate intelligence hearings and all this stuff to investigate the CIA and all that? Do you think that's just a Band-Aid, or do you think that, you know, it'll be something
Nancy Pelosi knew that they did 911. Half the Congress and Senate of the United States knew they were involved in 911. They knew they were being spied on prior to 911 by the Bushes the first day they walked into office, and the whole bit. They're as complicit in this treason as the rest of them. But is anything going to be done? In my opinion, it's smoke and mirrors. Look, we had a coup d'etat in the 2000 election. We had them attack America. We had them start a war in Afghanistan illegally based on 911 that they did. And for the oil pipeline to come out of the Caspian Sea Basin, it was all about oil. Stupid. It was a story we put up. Then they blame Iraq and Al-Qaeda, and Iraq had nothing to do with it. That was so they could get the Iraq oil, and the Israelis want the Middle East, all the Arabs, to go down into their graves because they're brothers and sisters, the Arabs and the Israelis. Their father was Abraham, and Sarah was the first Jew, and he had a child out of wedlock. They're half brothers and sisters. They want to kill each other. Okay, always. It's been going on forever. But we're not the surrogate government for Israel. And Israel, this espionage that's going on, all comes back to the Pollard case. And the Israelis had ties even in the death of Kennedy, tied to Permadex and the British and all that other stuff. It's been going on for years. It's just gotten out of control. And Chris, the financial side, if anybody really looks at the numbers and looks at the General Accounting Office and what 1% of the population, the Bush-Clinton-Millman Lender Crime Syndicate, what they controlled in 1981 was 20% of the economy straight across the board. They own corporations, everything. They own 20% of the corporations in America. 1% of the population. That means you, me, and Brett, and all of us, we were the 99% that controlled 80% of our own economy. Today, they're in control between 90 and 95% of all the economy of the United States. That's according
to consolidation and control. That's the central theme of when you scratch the surface. It's they're going to monopolize everything as they transition us to this totalitarian state that they're so in love with.
It's total control over the people. They got to have control of you, and if they can't control you, they're going to eliminate you. And we're coming down to that hour and that day, September the 1st. The flying pigs, folks, bird flu and swine flu combined, that they won't have the vaccination out till October from CDC. And then CDC, when they release it and approve it, it's going to be intentionally designed to kill anybody that takes the vaccination. So they're going to haul people off concentration camps or enemies of the state like you and other people, Chris, me, the different ones they think, and then they're going to vaccinate everybody, claim that you got it, and vaccinate you, and you're dead.
Right.
I mean, this is nothing but total evil. You can see I'm a Christian. I believe in the Bible. And I tell you what, we're not supposed to sit around and let evil triumph. We're supposed to do something about it. Look at David and Goliath. God commissioned David to do his job and get rid of Goliath and another 10,000 that he got rid of. We're supposed to stand up for your belief. This is good versus evil. And they are scripting biblical end-time prophecies as we speak. They, the Illuminati, the Templar bankers, Leonard Millman, Larry Mizell, George Herbert Walker Bush, the American Templars, Henry Kissinger, Lawrence Rockefeller, Carl Linder, Bill Grace. Those are the Templar bankers in America. Then you got the European bankers like the Rothschilds, etc. And then you got Oriental bankers, etc. I don't have the whole list of the 100 of them, but these are the 100 that control 90% of the wealth of the world. It's 100 crime families that believe in Satanism, that answer to the devil, who have sold their souls to the devil, and they're lied to by Satan. And Satan has told them, when you die, you'll come down to hell and be down here with me for a year, and then I'll kick you back out and reincarnate you. And they believe this crap. They're so far off the charts. And it all comes back to the skull and bones and all the other stuff people have heard about.
Maybe on another show you can bring that list and we can go over these Knights of Templar. That would be an interesting rating right there, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and the ones that answer to them, if you pull up the list of the Council of 13, but if you pull up the Trilateral Commission and the Council of Foreign Relations, and you go in and look at the list of people there, they're the stooges underneath them. They're the ones controlling the corporations throughout the world. And what's amazing, Chris, there's only 100 of these crime families, and there's only 10,000 of them directly underneath them controlling the corporations. And then you got 535 congressmen and senators, and you got the little stooge in the White House and his little gang of thieves. I mean, I would say it's pretty easy. We got 300 million Americans. Why can't we just all go out there with a set of handcuffs and duct tape and take care of the problem? I don't think too many Secret Service and I don't think too many FBI agents get in anybody's way of 300 million Americans. And you're looking at an adult population of what? Probably 180 million plus. Coming at them all at once. I don't think they're going to get in the way. I think they're going to let it happen. And that's called bring justice to this country. And then all you have to do is have good, honest people stand up and say, I want to be elected and run a 90-day election real quick. And the first one that gets out of hand again, take him to the shed and take care of the problem.
I agree. I agree. It's time for American citizens to be citizens instead of being complacent and listening to all this garbage and just taking anything that these criminals want to throw out there.
Russia had a revolution just here in the 1980 or 1990s, Berlin Wall, the 80s. They did it in, 6 days, Brett, as I recall history.
Pretty much the whole Eastern European empire fell down all in 1 year. But look how quickly they're able to infiltrate back in and take control.
Because the people allowed them to.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you something, because you were talking about the CFR and trilateral. I mean, wouldn't you, if you went to the lists of the Bilderberg attendees, there would probably be a lot of these Knight Templars at those.
The Bilderbergers are just a bunch of little morons. They're the Council of Foreign Relations, and they're the Trilateral Commission. I'll tell you, somebody just put a book out. If anybody wants to go get the list, Dr. John Coleman was the one that put out the most incredible list of the Council of Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission, as well as Simonette, Colonel Simonette, that was the vice presidential candidate with Bo Gritz. He identified them. And if you get their list, I mean, Coleman's books are out there. I know Colonel Simonette of San Antonio. Look him up on the Internet. He was asking for just a $5 donation. He'll send you a list that he had of the ones that were within government. You know, and people start looking at those. I mean, you know, Hal Turner, radio talk show host, that Patrick Fitzgerald Patrick, the in-the-closet homosexual that visited Barney Frank's whorehouses. We reported on it recently. U.S. attorney out of Chicago, you know, arrested Hal Turner because, I mean, he said some things about, you know, people should do this and do that against these congressmen and senators and rise up. Well, he may have crossed the line. I don't know. You know, maybe he didn't, but that was his feeling. But he posted lists of the Congress and Senate's home addresses. Now, you know, I took the verbiage out, and I posted the list that went around the Internet. I posted it up right on top of my site. U.S. Senate terrorists. Go on and look at the list. Know where these people are. Know where your elected officials live. September 1, we've got a problem in this country. And it's time to make them accountable. And it's time to have grand juries going. Grand juries is encompassing 13 people or 18 or whatever they call the number. And you appoint a judge and a prosecutor and bring the evidence. The day of revolution's at hand. And people better be stocking up, in my opinion, of food, ammo, and buy guns for your family members and your neighbors that don't have them. Because this thing's going to get out of hand.
Well, I'd say that it's not a revolution. It'd be a restoration, or it could be a
constitutional implementation.
Yeah, forcing the law. Yeah, I've seen that language on your website. That's a good way of saying it. I mean, it's the people who are failing to implement the Constitution are the ones that are breaking the law, abusing power. So you got the mechanism to put them back in their place.
The Constitution, the Declaration of Independence says that we have the right, and I'll read it to you right off the top of my website, which also, ladies and gentlemen, for your own edification, right on top of my website says grand jury case number. If you look underneath it, you'll see the medical supply. You'll be looking at also Brett's some of their filings on medical supply chain. I have the links there. It talks about the dead U.S. attorneys involved in this Medicare-Medicaid fraud that Brett's been talking about and earlier in the program. It's right there above where I start posting breaking news. You have to scroll down about a foot or foot and a half on my website to get to the breaking news section. But the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence is specific about this, and I'm finding it now to read it word for word to you, what we're allowed to do. And remember, the Constitution didn't come in for 10 years after. But it says, in Congress, July the 4th, 1776, unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing inevitably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. And there's a link to the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. We own America, Americans, not these Knights Templar and not these stooges that have been in office for 20 and 30 and 40 years. And I have a question about the Constitution, too. It says they're to go serve 2 terms and then return to their home state. Isn't that what our forefathers wrote about? They served 2 terms so we wouldn't have corruption of lifetime senators up there getting bribed, paid off, and doing what these satanic stooges want them to do?
Well, that was the name of the game. They were supposed to step down and step out.
2 terms. If you really read it about the Congress and the Senate, the House of Representatives and the Senators, they were to be do 2 terms each. Mm-hmm. That's what it says, not 4 terms or 20 terms and all this other stuff, and have control for the bunch of crime syndicate members.
Right, absolutely. Well, they're not following the law out there. I mean, a lot of our laws have been circumvented and distorted, and people have never done anything. I mean, the only time I ever saw real action in my lifetime I can remember was during the Vietnam War, when they literally shut down that war by marching in the streets and rioting and everything else. That's what got things accomplished in this country.
Well, that's exactly it, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that the American people ought to be doing over the Iraq War. Look, they started a war based on lies. They started Afghanistan based on lies. They attacked America, all over the news about Cheney spying on people, assassination teams, Bush, and all the other stuff. It's time that somebody does something, because all they're going to do is just keep ignoring it. What the hell is Obama doing? He's not doing anything. Eric Holder, Mr. Israeli Mark Rich, cover-up meister for the Clintons, what's he doing? Not a damn thing. He's sitting up there obstructing justice. Every one of these people need to be taken, and they need to be put on trial. And it's the American people. We have the right to remove them, it says, meaning physically go in and remove them and replace them. Mm-hmm. The Constitution and the Declaration of Independence is specific. It comes down to how many people out here, men, have the balls to do it, and how many women have the guts to do it. That's what it really comes down to. And I tell you, when they start this blue flying pig NSA code word, they're calling it, in September, and hopefully it won't happen from doing radio shows like this and other things and posting on the Internet, but if it does, you're going to be one sick puppy, and I don't know about the rest of you. It's going to be killing a lot of people. But if I were to get it, maybe I'll just turn renegade and nuts from getting it, knowing that I'm going to die. Maybe I'll go take out a few targets. Maybe some other people get that in their mind that has to be done. Because I'll tell you what, this country, we don't have justice. We don't have a legal justice department. We got constant obstruction of justice, cover up of treason and sedition. We got a foreign-born piece of shit in the White House, calls himself the President of the United States. He can't even be. He's a stooge for the Bushes. He's constantly aiding and abetting in treasonous activities against the United States, America, and the American people. The Congress and Senate, all of them are complicit in this treason and sedition, and they all know what the hell's going on. They all know, and they're feeding their pockets off the backs of the American people. We're the ones giving them their paychecks. Bush gives them their bribes and payoffs to do what they want them to do, these Templar satanic bankers. This country was built on Constitution. It was built on liberty, freedom, the pursuit of happiness, and to keep tyranny off our backs. And that's what this Constitution and Declaration was about, and this country. We have forefathers. We have grandfathers and great-grandfathers and fathers and people my age that have fought in the wars. I was in the Marine Corps. Many people were. I didn't go to war, but I'm telling you, there's enough people military trained in this country to put a stop to it. There's enough people that aren't military trained to put a stop to it. And it's a matter of the American people rising up and putting a stop to it. And it's coming to the day in the next month and a half. We are going to have bizarre situation go on with these foreign troops dumped on your head. So my word tonight, and I'll be happy to continue the show and talk about other things, you better stock up on food. You better stock up on the necessities you need to survive when this shit hits the fan in September. Because this is plotted, planned, and Obama is involved in it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, hold that thought, and we'll be right back. This is Freedom Fighters for America Radio, and thank you for tuning in. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Freedom Fighters for America Radio at www.freedomfightersforamerica.com. We have with us tonight Mr. Stu Webb, and we have Brett back on the show. Brett, what's your last name?
Landreth.
Okay, Brett Landers is with us on the show, too. I want to welcome you both back to the show. I have a question for Stu.
Go ahead.
Coordinated effort between the good guys on the inside and the people on the outside. How effective a move is that?
Are you saying the American-French alliance?
Well, I'm talking about American people in our government, American people in our military, who don't like this New World Order, who don't like what they see going on.
They refer to themselves as the American-French alliance. It's been in existence since the time of the Constitution, and it's active, and it's there, and the bad guys know it. Just like the dancing Israelis on the day of 9/11 and all their little stooges in this network, that's what all these arrests in New Jersey is about. We just posted up some details, okay?
What is their attitude about our NATO
I'll put it this way. I'll put it this way. I gave evidence to certain ones involved in all this of the bank bailout and the artificial mortgages coming out of MDC asset investors, where they were buying up mortgages all across the country. And then they were turning around and they were selling them up to Wall Street to pension funds and so forth in bundles of like 2, 3, 500 mil or 2 or 3 billion at a time. And then they would turn around and create an artificial mortgage that they just sold to another bank. They would create one identical and keep a separate set of books. So they would sell it, make $500,000 on the mortgage, say it was a $500,000 mortgage, and then they would sit there and pay payments on it for a period of time to make it look like that the owners were paying the mortgage when in fact they weren't. It was the fraudsters who were paying the mortgage. So they ended up paying out $100,000 in the mortgages over this 10-year period of time or whatever to allow it to run, or this 7-year period to 8-year period of time since 2001. And they did it again and again and again, 9 times, 9 artificial mortgages. So there were 30% of all the mortgages sold in the United States during the period of time from 2001 until approximately 2 years ago. Those mortgages had 9 fake mortgages behind it. This is a reason some of the people were reporting about 4 or 5 months ago down in Florida that they don't know which lender to contact because they quit paying their payments to their one lender, but all of a sudden they've got 4 and 5 and 6 other lenders who say that they hold the mortgage, these other banks. It's just beginning to surface. Chris, I and others were the ones that gave it to certain people. I give credit to Tom Hennigan. He helped get it done with me. We pumped it to certain people, and they came in, and now Bush runs. We had him nailed to the walls. And Bush, before he leaves office, gives them a bailout. Gives them a bailout last summer.
But there's not fewer people working in the comptroller currency, the banking regulatory agencies. There's still banking auditors. There's thousands of worker bee regulators that saw all this happen. And that's the problem with the crime syndicate. Eventually, just like now saying Iraq war veterans are the potential terrorist threat to the United States, soon they're going to be saying police officers and federal bureaucrats are the terrorist threat that the Homeland Security has to keep track of. Because they're people that know the truth and talking about it. So,
yeah, they're talking about people who put bumper stickers with Ron Paul on there, or any other kind of the autograph flag upside down.
I was in Missouri, and I at the same time, the Army National Guard wouldn't accept me, and I kept razzing them. I said, you know, is it because I voted for the wrong Republican presidential candidate in the primary? Is that how come? Am I a terrorist now? You know, and our governor, Jay Nixon, wouldn't back down from that either. Finally, our lieutenant governor came forward and reminded people what the Constitution was.
Yeah, somebody better remind all American citizens about what a real Constitution is, and I'm glad there are some people out there doing that. I think a lot of people are just very accepting about what's going on out here. And they need to wake up and realize that this is criminal activity. This isn't right. This is destroying our country.
And that's in the end why you see that foreign troops will come. You can't complete the takedown because you can no longer trust your internal security forces. The Topeka police officer that arrested David Price was crying because just by chance he remembered David Price as a guy that helped a stranded motorist on the highway in Wabaunsee County when nobody else would, and the guy got a commendation later because he was able to get help for the stranded motorist and got promoted for it. And that this is the guy that they sent to him to arrest. I mean, you have a problem that your same neighborhood group, your police officer is the one that knows that you're not the evil person. The person that sent them are the people that are doing the crime. And eventually those people can no longer trust the police, so they turn on even the police.
Are you still there, Chris?
I'm here.
Chris, are you still there? Chris, we can't hear you. Are you still on the line, or did you get cut off? Did we get cut off?
Yeah, it sounds like we got cut.
Chris?
Still there?
Yeah, we're still here. We were wondering if you were around.
Okay, yeah, I got popped off. That's too much. They don't like me on this show. Oh, well. So, oh, my goodness. So, anyway, I think we're just about out of time, but was there any last statements, any last comments you wanted to make?
No, just keep on doing what you're doing. I early on read Rodney Stitch's work on the internet, and listening to shows like yours, it's probably the only thing that kept me sane is knowing that it's happened to other people.
Yeah, it's really a tragedy about what's going on out there, but we are in the fight, and I'm really happy to have you both on the show. Mr. Stu Webb, always a pleasure, and I hope that we get a chance to speak soon. And
real quick, I would like, and I thank you for having us on, Chris, but I'd like for Brett to give out information about his website and about medical supply chain. You want to give that out, Brett?
Well, yeah, you can find out the deep background about everything we said, and New York Times stories covering it, and London Times, and even a TV show, BBC interview of me on medicalsupplychain.com under the news page. You can see all the case filings and where the case is today.
This is over Medicare and Medicaid fraud, ripping off the United States taxpayers. How much would you estimate it to really be at, Brett?
When we started in 2002, it was well over $80 billion. It's a $1.9 trillion market, and it's pretty much the thing that's even beating Obama in Congress right now. There's so much corrupt money flowing through it that even the Democrat Party can't fight it. It's the sole reason why relatives you've had that died from lack of care or people you know lost their jobs. That's why America quit working.
And if you look on my website, stewwebb.com, up above breaking news, you will see a posting that I did about John Ashcroft, former United States Attorney General, how he got paid off over this Medicare Medicaid fraud. How much was it, Brett? $52 million a year? You want to explain that?
Yeah, he got paid a retainer agreement of $52 million just to supervise a small medical supply company that admitted to doing some wrongdoing. So that's how much money is in the game. It's far more than even Abramoff raised. So they say in some ways it's bigger than the securities fraud that destroyed most of America. So we're hoping that eventually when people realize that they can't accommodate them, can't keep dividing the pot that's bankrupting America. Even the Office of Management and Budget says that we run out of money by 2016. But hopefully we turn and decide to start enforcing some laws.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Amen to that. Again, gentlemen, I want to thank you for being on the show and all our guests for attending tonight. We'll be back on the air tomorrow with a targeted individual story, a man from Florida. And again, this is Freedom Fighters for America Radio, and we expose crime and corruption. Tune in, and you can see Stu's website at www.stewwebb.com, and our site is www.freedomfightersforamerica.com. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, Chris.